Just going to start off with some of the bigger news stories from Friday night. Initially, on Friday night, which was June 4th, officers located a stolen. Turn my radio off there for you. That'll help. A stolen black Yukon Denali on the west side of town, and began to look into that vehicle as it had matched some descriptions of some previously involved incidents that we've had with that darker SUV. Upon finding it, they did realize it was stolen. It ended up fleeing officers when they intended to stop it, and then fleeing through downtown, kind of over towards 14th Street. Officers, obviously, it was a busy weekend downtown, backed off, recognized some of the danger to that, and in the vehicle eluded officers and got away from them briefly. However, it was quickly picked up in the about the 3100 block of East 11th, where it was located and found to be unoccupied at that time. As the investigation was ongoing into that apartment complex, a Toyota RAV4 came in, which was also later found out to be stolen, and it was identified that some of the suspects were related to that previous vehicle, may have been in that car. Officers attempted to stop that vehicle. It was occupied by, we think, at least 2 people, and were attempting to make a stop, obviously with safety in mind. The occupants of that vehicle chose not to listen to those commands. Instead, drove and rammed the squad car, pushing it back towards officers who had to retreat from the vehicle as it was getting hit. The vehicle then sped out of the parking lot and was able to be picked up with some assisting units or help from the Highway Patrol, and a pursuit again was initiated as it went up north of town and actually got out towards some of the gravel there, the water reclamation plant, 60th Street North, Monson area, where it then crashed into a field. Able to get a perimeter up with Highway Patrol, the use of our K9 units, and then we also deployed, I think it was noted on some of your news sources, a UAS or drone, but unmanned aircraft system to help search the fields and locate that area. Again, we can talk about that later, but the use of that UAS or drone really enhances officer safety and allows us to see a lot of area that we can't see from the ground. And so that was utilized just as it's intended to kind of enhance officer safety and safety for other people as we can kind of determine what's happening and find a cautious approach towards it. At the conclusion of that search and looking through the location, we were able to locate one individual who was arrested in regards to what had taken place, and I'll have that name for you at the end when we're done talking. No one else was located in the field, unknown, as it was, again, a pretty dynamic incident that went through a large portion of town in different directions, but we were able to make an arrest on that. And the arrest was for a, first name Justice, Justice, last name Bravehawk, Bravehawk. And Justice was, lodged at jail for several charges, included stolen vehicle, aggravated eluding, aggravated assault on law enforcement, and possession of controlled substance. Again, this incident stretched through a large portion of the city, required cooperation from many of our law enforcement partners, to include the Highway Patrol, Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office, and was brought to a safe resolution without any injuries, despite some of the actions taken by the people involved to put officers and the public at risk. So this is a continuing investigation in regards to other incidents as well. Again, numerous supplemental reports in here, and detectives will be looking into it. But again, a couple stolen vehicles involved in that as well. A good reminder, again, as we mentioned kind of last week in press briefing about securing vehicles and taking your keys, but and not leaving them in the car. But again, great cooperation between law enforcement partners in helping with this incident, and another example of how that UAS or drone really enhances officer and community safety, that we were able to utilize that. Any questions on this particular incident?
Yeah. Did the drone actually find the person in the field?
We were able to use the drone and really eliminate large portions of the field by using that. And there's some technological stuff which actually is, I know, have a little bit of a working knowledge, but not a complete working knowledge. I wasn't out there for that incident that night. But again, it has the ability to really narrow search areas down and really allow us to do a lot of things. Because really what we're looking for is not a surprise confrontation with somebody. We want to be able to really eliminate as much as we can, especially in open fields like that. Becomes a useful tool.
Did you guys just deploy the one drone?
I believe in looking through this, we just deployed one that night. Yeah. Again, and we have others, but resources, this took an incredible amount of resources because as this was going on, numerous other incidents were happening through the city. So again, relying on our law enforcement partners, the Highway Patrol and Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office to assist us through some of this stuff was really key.
Do you have a time and kind of location on when he was arrested?
Yep, it was in the area. I'm looking through the reports here, but it looks like that 60th Street North and Bonson area, kind of by the city's water reclamation plant in an open field. Not available in the report. If I remember right, that was somewhere around, I believe, that midnight. I can pull up on the report later and see if I can see where that's at. Yeah, they can fly at night. And there's.
Any idea how many suspects may still be at large?
This is still a pending investigation, and we're still looking deeply into it. As we talked about last week on Friday, it gives us great concern, you know, some of the recent gunshot stuff that's happening in town. And again, it's an ongoing investigation. And if you remember from Friday's press briefing, we had that dark SUV that was mentioned prominently. And we're again looking for links and seeing if this was the one that was involved too. So.
No charges yet as it relates to the shooting?
Yeah, those are still under investigation for the Detective Bureau there.
And that black SUV was not found. The Toyota.
Sorry,
crashed.
the black SUV was found abandoned in an apartment complex over there, and then that's what kind of led to that area being searched and scrutinized. And then a new vehicle entered, which we feel had ties, as sometimes people will, you know, ditch an automobile and then have another automobile come pick them up. So there's just kind of a constant cycling things that goes through there. So again, an event this complex has numerous details to it, but that's kind of the synopsis of how that took place. Nope. Yep, squad cars rammed. Thankfully, officers were able to kind of foretell this might. I mean, we're always thinking officers to prepare, be ready. What would happen if this car did this or this, and they were able to just get out of the way as that person made contact. Again, it puts officers in a dangerous situation. We do our best to prepare them to think about the what ifs could happen when we get in these high intensity situations, especially with suspects who have proven to be fairly motivated to not listen to lawful commands and kind of ram their way out of situations. So.
Do you have an estimate on the damages?
Not at this point. Not at this point. Yeah.
Do you have no location of where that? No.
In the 3000 block, roughly, of East 11th Street, I believe is where it was. Yeah, 3000, 3100 block, East 11th Street.
And they were in the front of the squad car.
Yeah, as I kind of look at it, they were actually maybe behind it because we teach to use cover, you know, when dealing with those types of situations. All right.
No drugs or weapons found in the vehicle?
There's no weapons were recovered. There was a mention of some, I think some user amount of narcotics was located somewhere during the course of the investigation. So that may have had nothing of substantial note as far as that goes.
You said you guys believe there was 2 people in the SUV?
Yeah, a minimum of 2 as it left that area. Yeah.
So still looking for those others?
Yep. Still working the case and still, again, looking to see what we can figure out on that. All right. Move on to another one. We did have another aggravated assault on law enforcement. This is June 4th, about, let's see, 9:30, 9:40 at night. Officers were dispatched. Looks like the intersection of like Minnesota and Bennett would be the location. Let's see, a reporting party had called in, explained that there was someone at the residence who was highly intoxicated and was coming towards their house. Was in their backyard. May have been a known person to them, and they were being very disruptive. They called officers for assistance as they were not wanting to deal with this person, and because it had been very combative in the past when they were under the influence of alcohol. Officer arrived on scene, made contact with the subject, who was trying to get closer to that residence, and in doing so attempted to detain the individual to figure out what the situation was. It was just a solo officer at that point. In detaining him, he did begin to struggle and fight with the officer and pushed the officer in his face and began kicking the officer in the stomach as a physical altercation ensued. And at one point during the physical altercation, the suspect was attempted to remove the weapon from the officer's holster. The officer was able to thwart that move and put the suspect in a position basically of control and waited for backup officers to come, and they placed them under arrest without further incident. No injuries sustained to either officer or the other individual, and the suspect in that case. And let's see here, individual was lodged at jail for aggravated assault on law enforcement, simple assault on law enforcement, obstruction, and resisting arrest. And again, I'll get a name for you on that. Suspect identified as last name Goodbird and first name Joshua, middle name of Allen.
Could you spell those for us?
Yeah, I'll get the case page up. That's a little better. Yeah. Yeah, last name Goodbird, Goodbird. First name Joshua, Joshua, middle of Allen, Alan. Date of birth 6/70/90. 6/70/1990.
You said he was pretty intoxicated.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason why someone had called, is because he was intoxicated and had known, the reporting party had known in the past when he's intoxicated, he was not an easy person to deal with for that individual. So again, officers were able to subdue the situation, no injuries to either party, but obviously a serious incident when somebody tries to grab an officer's firearm. It's something we train for again, but again, a serious incident and something that puts officers at risk, obviously, when that stuff like that happens. Any questions in regard to that one? Say again? Where's he from? He appears to be Sioux Falls. Yep.
What, alcohol and all?
One was taken, and it was just from visual observations and observations on scene. It appeared that alcohol was on board for that individual.
And, sorry, did he live at that house, or did he just
You know, it seems like there was some relation to that, not just either family, friends, something. There was something that was drawing him to that residence. So, in that vicinity, yeah. Let's see here. Another one just from Friday, while we're going through this, covered again by most news sources, was the Phillips Avenue Diner. Again, officers arrived down there as it was reported by passerbys. I think some of you had some preliminary stuff on this on all of your websites, that there was smoke coming from the Phillips Avenue Diner. Just an update on that, and this is pretty common for fire investigations. Police will go put up a perimeter to try to let firefighters do their work. It was a little bit difficult that night due to the bars releasing at about that time too. Good reminder for people when they are at an active scene or anything with fire or police, if there's a perimeter put up, to respect that perimeter and go around it. But as they kind of work through fires, the fire inspectors will come out, take a look, because obviously determining a cause is of note. And just an update that that's still under investigation. Fire inspectors will look. We have arson inspectors that kind of put their heads together and say, okay, can we determine how this was caused or what happened? There were some theories to see if a cigarette, electrical fire, and again, it's too early to speculate. And in law enforcement, I know one thing when it comes to arson and fire, we let the professionals work that out and don't offer too many opinions at this point, because there is some science to that and something that they'll be working on. So that's something that will still be under investigation, but I noticed on the log, it'll show up as an arson, which usually piques people's attentions, but that's pretty standard reporting procedure for police to do a case report, to gather evidence, video, everything that came along with that, and put that under that case. So worth noting in this circumstance. Any questions on that? And it may be beneficial to reach out to fire on that too and see if they have anything.
Do you have a time that call first came in?
Yeah, it looks like the call first came in at just after midnight, so 12:13. And the reporting party could see smoke coming from inside the diner, in like the southwest corner. That's what prompted them to call. And then kind of from there, they could see more flames coming from inside, and then prompted obviously a pretty substantial fire response to deal with that issue.
You mentioned people not respecting like the police perimeter. Did you have people that were kind of trying
Well,
to get in the way of the scene? Or?
It's just a crowd scene management issue for any event. Like, people want to come look and they want to come see what's happening, whether it's a police incident or a fire incident. The reality is, and again, I didn't get too many detailed reports on here. It's just a good time to bring out that general reminder, and because just kind of bars were getting out, so it provided a lot of people to that area just to see. And if an officer or a firefighter says, "Hey, I need you across the street," or "I need you beyond this boundary," it's just not the time to try to get a better look. And I think sometimes we get a little close sometimes. And in media, we have a great relationship with media. Media always knows the rules. Like, "Hey, I need you over here," because we have there's a lot of education that goes along with that, and it's a good time to just educate the public. If we need you in a certain area, whether it's police, fire, or any other critical incident, it's primarily for your safety or to allow the necessary responders to work effectively on whatever's there. And if people don't respect that, it requires more responders to handle the people than to deal with other stuff. And as you can imagine, Friday at midnight is pretty busy, so there's a lot of things going on. Yeah, just a good reminder in general for the public. Let's see. One more aggravated assault to cover, and if there's anything else in the log that you see, because again, a weekend log has quite a few incidents in it. But this will be, again, from the 6th of June, which would be yesterday. Officers were dispatched to the area of 8th and Franklin for a report of an assault. And it was reported that by somebody that they had been struck with a hammer and had a minor cut on their elbow. And then in the course of the investigation, it also became apparent that there may have been a knife involved in this assault. Officers were able to arrive on scene. There was a vehicle description, a suspect description, and in working with the victim, we're able to come up with that possible person. Officers, knowing the area well, kind of had an idea of where that car may be. Were able to go to the park where they were able to locate the suspect and take him into custody without incident. Again, a hammer was used. The knife was produced but never used. Let's see here. Yes. Yep. Sorry, let me just read one more ask here. Yeah. And then in kind of putting that together is when the arrest was made. Again, the individual arrested on that would be, I'll pull it up. Last name Aguen and first name Nagor, Ngor, date of birth 1/1/80.
Do we know why the suspect hit him?
There appeared to be a dispute between the two, an argument, and then that argument seemed to escalate. The victim actually got in the middle of the argument between two other people, and then that's kind of when the hammer came out, and it could not provide too much more. There may have been some alcohol involved as well, but it did appear to be, the genesis was an argument. The argument kind of escalated. Somebody grabbed a hammer, hit somebody with a hammer, and then a knife was produced as well. So that person was lodged, as I mentioned, for, I believe, aggravated assault. It was the charge there as well.
Could you say just real quick where it happened, like where the call response was?
Need 8th and Franklin, and then he was located over at Heritage Park, which is just down the road there, 8th and Weber area. So, yeah. And then one more thing worth noting, and this is still very preliminary, is officers were out this morning dealing with it. I don't know if you caught it with the shooting on North Cliff. I don't know if you guys caught that at all, but let's see here. And again, I'll have very limited information on this. There'll probably be more tomorrow. But officers dispatched to 970 North Cliff for gunshots. I believe that was right around 1 a.m. I'd have to look up the time here a little bit as it's not included in this quick brief, and I'll get that for you. But the preliminary investigation, and obviously people are still looking through this, there was a dispute again between two parties. A group of those individuals left the apartment area, went to go get in a car to leave. Another person came out, fired shots at that vehicle. Some occupants of the vehicle then returned shots. Again, very preliminary at this point. In the course of it all, several vehicles were damaged. Some bullet holes were in some vehicles as well. However, no injuries from gunfire, where there's some minor injuries from some glass. And again, this is, again, preliminary, but wanted to note that it wasn't a random occurrence. This was some known individuals who, again, had some sort of argument, and it escalated to that. And I can get you a time there if you need it, but if I remember from the initial call screen, it was somewhere around 1 in the morning, but I will, here we go. Looks like 1:50 might be it. Yeah, 1:50 this morning. And as I was coming to work, they were still out working on it and trying to put some pieces together on that. So again, obviously, again, concerning more gun violence that we've kind of talked about the past briefing too. But no injuries at this point, some property damage, and like I said, a minor injury for some glass for one individual, but obviously could have been a lot worse. So,
Do you know how many people were arrested?
at this point, investigation is still ongoing. I know there was, at least from looking at the screen before I got here, I think there was at least one party that was arrested, but I don't know their relationship to that incident, if that was one of the involved people who had a firearm or just somebody who was involved. Sometimes people with warrants or drugs also end up being mixed up with this too, and arrests being made. But again, too preliminary for me to comment, as I was just getting up to speed with everything else from the weekend, and this one is still kind of developing at that moment.
This is at 970 North Cliff.
Yeah, and that general, that's the location of the original call, but that whole complex, I guess, is kind of up there is where it happened.
Estimate on the amount of shots fired?
No, it looks like 11 at this point, is it a preliminary estimate? Again, still trying to figure that all out. Sometimes we look at what we can find for shell casings. Thankfully, a lot of places sometimes have some surveillance video we can hopefully use and try to figure some more of that.
Cars were damaged?
Yep, one of the vehicles began to, as it was getting shot at, try to flee and rammed into some vehicles and did some more damage as well. All right, any other questions? It's kind of a lot, at least it seemed like a lot to me. I'm not usually doing press briefings, so that seemed like a long one, but if you have anything, just let me know. And like I said, there may be some more information on this tomorrow as more details become apparent. So thanks again.